Hey there, how's it going everybody? In this Django tutorial, we're going to be learning how to use Amazon S3 for our file storage instead of our local file system. So using AWS and S3 is a nice cost-effective way to store our files, and also it's going to be very scalable, secure, and have some good performance. Now I'm calling this video part 13 of the series. If you've been following along, then you might notice that the last numbered video was part 12, where we added the password reset functionality. I had a few videos after that about deploying to a Linux server, but I didn't number those because I'm going to show multiple ways to deploy our application, and all of those deployment methods are separate from actually adding functionality to our application. So the videos where we are adding new features will be numbered, and the different deployment videos won't be. So I just wanted to clear that up. So in this video, we're going to be moving our file storage to AWS S3 buckets. Now, I actually started making this video because I was wanting to make a video where we deploy our application to Heroku, and Heroku doesn't have a standard file system for us to use. So they require that we use S3 to store our files. And S3 is a common file storage solution for a lot of websites. So I figured that we could see how to make that switch. So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, if you've been following along with this Django series and you didn't watch my video about deploying to a Linux server, then you may not have seen a correction that I made to our Django code in that video. The correction that needs to be made is very small, and it's in our users models.py file. So I'm going to open up my application here, and that is in our users app here, models.py. And the mistake is down here in our save method. So when we're calling the save method on our parent class, this super.save part right here, we need to accept any other arguments that our parent class might be expecting. So in this case, we need to pass in args, which are positional arguments, and kwargs, which are keyword arguments. So we need to pass those into the save method. So to do this, I will just say star args and star kwargs. And we need to be expecting these in the save method itself as well. So I'm going to copy those and paste those in there as well. And again, what that does is it allows us to accept any arbitrary number of positional or keyword arguments to our method. And we're actually going to be getting rid of this save method later, so we probably didn't need that change. But if you've been getting an error with that save method, I just wanted to show you the fix for that before we get started. So with that correction in place, let's move on and see how we can now use S3 buckets for our file uploads. So first of all, you're going to need an account with Amazon Web Services. So this is just like signing up on any other site. If you go to aws.amazon.com that I have open here, then you'll be able to create an AWS account. So just walk through their instructions to get set up with an account on their site. Now, I already have an account that I'm signed into, so whenever I click on create an account, it takes me here to this management console. So once you have an account, you're going to want to open up your management console here so that we can create an S3 bucket. So this management console here might be a little intimidating if you haven't used AWS, because there are so many different services that are listed here. So the service that we want to open is called S3. Now you could scroll through here and find this, but instead of searching through all of these down here, we can just search for it here. So I'm going to type in S3. And we can see that this pops up here, scalable storage in the cloud. So what S3 stands for is simple storage service. So let me see if I can make this a little larger here so that we can see a little better. Okay, so now what we want to do is create a new bucket. So this bucket is going to be what holds our files. Now, bucket names have to be universally unique. So they can't just be unique for your account. So there can't be any other bucket in the world with the same name. So sometimes choosing a name can take some trial and error. So I'm going to go to click on create bucket here, and I will create a bucket. I'll call this Django-blog-files, and that should be a unique name. Now, I like to keep my bucket names simple, and since you're going to be using these in programs, I also try to only make them lowercase letters here and only add in dashes. If the bucket name is too complicated, then sometimes that can interfere with certain programming languages. Okay, so you can choose whichever region you'd like. I'm just going to keep this selected as US West Oregon here. And now I'm just going to click through and accept most of these defaults. So you can change these if you like and enable versioning. I'm just going to accept all the defaults here and click through. When we get to permissions, I'll click next. And finally, I'll click on Create Bucket. Okay, so once we have our bucket created, we're going to need to change some permissions with this. Now, I've got these permissions from the Heroku documentation for setting up an S3 bucket, so I'll just paste those in once we get this pulled up. So to do this, I'm going to click on the bucket here, and now for our top menu here, I'm going to click on Permissions. And now I'm going to go to this CORS configuration. If I hover over this, we can see that this is cross-origin resource sharing. It defines a way for client web applications to interact with resources in a different domain. So I'm going to click on that, and we can see that it gives a sample policy there. I'm going to paste the one that I got from Heroku, and I will also put this on my GitHub as well. So I have this open here. So I'm going to copy the one that I have. And again, I'll have this on my GitHub, and I'll leave a link to that in the description section below if you would like to copy and paste this as well. So I'm going to paste that in there and then just click Save. So this is basically just telling our bucket that we're going to be performing some actions from some domains here. Now in the Heroku documentation, they say to have this allowed origin set to your domain name, but I'm setting this to an asterisk for now, which will allow the origin to be from anywhere. Now we can tighten this up later if we'd like once we get this application deployed, but for now I'm just going to leave that as an asterisk. Okay, so once we've got that bucket created and those permissions set up, then we're going to want to create a new user. So I'm going to go back to my management console here, and we want a user that has more limited restrictions than our admin user. That way it adds an extra layer of security. Now to do that, we're going to open a service called IAM, which stands for Identity Access Management. And again, I'm just going to search for this. So I'll type in IAM and click on that. And now we want to create a new user. So I'm going to click on Users. And we can see that right now I only have this AWS admin account here. So now I'm going to click on Users. And now for the username, I will just call this Django underscore user. And now we have to select an AWS access type here. Now I'm just going to click on programmatic access. So programmatic access means that we'll use this user to access AWS with an access ID and a secret access key. But we don't need access of the AWS console with this user, so I'll just leave that unchecked. So now I will click Next. And now we've got to give this user some permissions. And I want to give this user permission to access our S3 buckets. So I'm going to go to attach existing policies directly and click on that over here. And now for the policies that we want to search, I'm going to search for an S3 policy. And if we search that, we can see what we get a few results here, but there's one called Amazon S3 Full Access. So I'm going to check that one there. Now, Amazon S3 Full Access might give more permissions for our application than we actually need, but we're still protected with our secret access key and things like that. Now, if you wanted to be extra safe, then you can learn more about AWS policies and tighten up that policy even further if you'd like. But for this series, I'm just going to do the Amazon S3 Full Access. So now we'll click Next, and I don't need any tags, so I'll click Next, and finally, I'll click Create User. Okay, so now that we've created our user, it's going to give us an access key ID, which we can see here, and a secret access key that we can use in our program so that AWS knows that we have the correct credentials for this user. Now, you don't want to put these credentials directly in our code because that means anyone who has access to our code will be able to see our secret access key. So anytime we want to access sensitive information like this in our code, we just use environment variables or something like that. And you can also put those in configuration files that you don't commit to your repository. But in this series, we've been using environment variables so far. So for example, if you've been following along with this entire series, then you should already have some experience setting environment variables since that's where we put our username and password for our email service. But if you don't know how to set environment variables, then I do have a separate video on how to do that for your operating system. So I'll leave a link to that video in the description section below if you need to give that a watch. Now, since I'm on a Mac, I can put these environment variables in my .bash_profile file. But like I said, if you're on a different operating system and don't know how to do this, then you can watch that other video that I just mentioned on how to set those. So I'm going to do this in my .bash_profile. So let me open this up. I'm going to open up my terminal here and let me clear this screen. Okay. So I'm going to open up my bash profile, which is in my home folder, in order to set those environment variables. So that's bash_profile. Now, I have that Sublime command to automatically open this up in Sublime, but if you don't have this command set up, then you can just open that in Sublime manually. Okay, so I'm going to put these here underneath this comment where I say that I'm going to set my Django blog variables. So to do this on Mac, we can use the export command. So I'll say export, and first we're going to set the AWS access_key_ID, and we're going to set that equal to, going to go back to AWS here. I'm going to copy the access key ID that they gave me when I created that user. So I will paste that in there. Now I'm going to copy this and paste this under here. But now, instead of the AWS access key ID, I'm going to also add the AWS, this is secret_access_key. And this is going to be equal to, if I go back here, I'm going to show my secret access key and copy that. And I'm going to remove this user before I put this video out live. So this access key ID and access key won't be active when I release this. So you won't be able to use these. So don't worry, I'm not accidentally exposing secret keys that will be active on my account by the time this video goes live. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And actually, while we're at it, let's also add our S3 bucket as an environment variable as well. That way, it can be updated in one place for our application if the name of the bucket ever changes. So let me go to view here. I'm going to turn this word wrap off so that that's not going on the next line. So I will say export, and I'm going to call this AWS_storage_bucket_name. I will set that equal to, the name of our bucket is Django-blog-files, and I'll save that. So I'm not just choosing arbitrary names here for these environment variable names. These actually have to be named this way to interact with a module that we're going to use here in a bit that we'll see once we actually start using this in our Django application. So be sure that you're using these same environment variable names as well. Okay, so now that we have all of that set up on our AWS and have the environment variables in place, let's now change our Django code to use S3 instead of the local file system. So first we'll need to install some packages, and these will be Bodo3, which is the AWS Python package, and Django Storages, which is an easier way for Django and S3 to interact. And Django Storages is also what's going to use these environment variables here. So with that said, I'm going to pull my terminal back up here. Let me clear this out. And now I will install those packages. So that is pip install, that's Bodo3. So I will run that. Okay, and once that's installed, I will clear the screen here. And now I'm also going to do a pip install of Django-storages. It's not just storage, but storages. So I will run that. Okay, and once that's installed, I'll clear my screen. Okay, and once those are installed, we're going to need to make some changes to our settings.py file. So I'm going to open up my project here. Let me close down these other files that we've been messing with. And now I'm going to open up my settings.py. So that is within Django project, settings.py. And again, I'm going to turn off my word wrap here so this isn't wrapping onto different lines. Okay, so first, the Django Storages package that we installed is a Django app and needs to be included in our installed apps. So I'm going to scroll down here just a little bit until we see our installed apps. And I'm going to add this, and I'm just going to add it here to the bottom. And we don't put Django Storages here. This is actually just going to be Storages. So I will save that. Okay, and once we have that added to our installed apps, now we're going to need to set some more variables for our settings. So let's scroll down to the very bottom and add some of these. So I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom of our settings.py file here, and I will add these to the bottom. And the variables that we're going to add here are actually the same ones that we just added to our environment variables. So actually, let me open that back up so that I can copy these. So I'm going to copy all three of these here that we put in our environment variables, and I'm going to paste these in to our settings here. And now we want to set each of these to the value that is in our environment variable. So to do that, this is what we also did with our email user and email password. So I'm just going to copy that line here where we're doing os.environ.get. That's how you get an environment variable. And the environment variable that we want to get, we called this AWS access key ID. And I will just copy this line here. Actually, let me copy the equal sign too. I will just copy this here for these other two and change this one to AWS secret access key and copy this one here and make this AWS storage bucket name. So technically, whenever I said that these environment variables had to be named these for our Django storages module, really they just have to be named that here in the settings.py file, but I think it makes it easier to remember if you just have those same names in the environment variables as well. Okay, so that will provide AWS with all of the credentials that it needs to access these buckets through this user, but we also want to set some additional settings here. So another one is going to be AWS underscore S3 underscore file, all caps, file overwrite. And I'm going to set that equal to false, because if a user uploads a file that is the same name as a file that someone else uploaded, we don't want those files to be overwritten, because then, if somebody uploaded a file that was, user.jpg or something like that, we wouldn't want that to change everybody's file that was called user.jpg. We would just want it to rename it to something with some characters appended to the end. Okay, and another setting that we want to set is going to be one called AWS underscore default underscore ACL. And we're going to set that equal to none. So it's recommended to set this to none since the current default of this value can cause some issues. And this will be set to none by default in future versions of Django storage. So we shouldn't have to set it. But for now, we do have to set this to none. Okay, and finally, I'm going to set a last setting here. And this is going to be default underscore file underscore storage, and I'm going to set this equal to storages, which will use that storages app dot backends dot s3 bodo 3 dot s3 bodo 3 storage. And this is actually all going to be in a string, so I forgot to put my quotes there, so I'll add those quotes in there. Now, I didn't just memorize this stuff here. I actually got this from the documentation. So if you ever want to look at this, then you can just type into Google Django storages documentation, and it should be the top result here. So if we go to their storages file and then say that we're saving our stuff on Amazon S3, then we can look through here and see all of these settings that need to be set, where some of these are optional, but the AWS access key, the secret access key, the storage bucket name, here's that AWS default where it gives its recommendation here. So if you want to see more information about everything that we set in our settings file, then you can come here to their documentation and look through here, and there's a lot of different things and a lot of different examples that they have. So let me open back up our project here. Okay, so we're just about done here, but there's one more thing that I have to do. So remember, with our profile pictures, we set that up earlier in the series so that the pillow library resizes those images by opening them up on the file system and then resizing and resaving them. Now, this worked well with our images when they lived on our local file system, but now they're in an S3 bucket, and using pillow is just going to give us some issues. So I think it's best just to remove that image resizing for now. And if anyone is interested, then I can show you in the future video how to do this for files in S3. But for now, we're just going to remove that functionality. So that functionality is actually in our users app and models.py. And this is actually what we changed at the beginning of the video, the one that I said had an error, the one we first created it in the series. Now, that was the save method down here, and we're just going to, you can remove or comment out the save method here. I'm just going to comment it out so that we can at least see how we resized those images if we ever want to see that again, or you can completely remove it, but I'm just going to comment that out for now. So now images aren't going to be automatically resized like they were on the file system, but for anyone who is curious, if we wanted to add that functionality back to our application, we could simply create an AWS Lambda function that resizes our images for us automatically when they're uploaded to S3. But I don't want to get too far into the AWS weeds in this video, so maybe we'll do that in a future video. Okay, so now all of this should be working. Now, we don't currently have our current profile pictures on AWS, so if we start up the site now, then those aren't going to show up. So if we want to get the existing pictures to show up, then we'll also have to transfer those to our S3 bucket. So I'm going to do that simply by opening our S3 bucket in the browser and dragging and dropping our existing profile pictures into that bucket. So I'm going to go back to our browser here and go back to our S3 bucket. So I'll go to our management console and search for S3, go to S3, and we only have one bucket here, which are our Django blog files, and currently this is empty. So I have my application open here in Finder. So this is our Django project, and our profile pictures are currently saved in our media folder. So I'm going to open up that media folder, and we have our default, and then we also have our profile pictures. So I'm just going to highlight both of those, and you can add those to S3 just by dragging them over here and dropping them. And we can see that it's asking us if we want to upload those, and I will just say next. And we could set some permissions here if we wanted to, but I'll just click next, and finally upload. Okay, so it looks like those pictures were uploaded to our bucket. So if I was to click on the default.jpg and open that, then we can see that that is that opens on our bucket. So that is good. Now remember, we're not currently resizing these images that get added to our bucket. So be careful that you're not dumping, extremely large files in there. S3 is fairly cheap. I think it's like 2 cents per gigabyte or something like that. But still, you might as well keep it small if possible. Okay, so now that we have that in place, we should be able to run our application with our media files being served from AWS S3 instead of our local file system. So let's give that a try. So I currently have a server running here, so I'm going to stop that. Okay, and I will open up a new terminal here so that we get those environment variable changes. And now let me navigate to our project so that we can run this. Now, I am working within a virtual environment. You might not be using a virtual environment, but since I opened up a new terminal here, I need to activate that really quick. So that is in Django env bin activate. If you're on Windows, then you'll activate a virtual environment a little bit different than that. But now we can see that I have my Django environment activated here, and that's where I installed all of those new modules. So now I can run my Django project. So we can do that just by saying Python manage.py run server. Okay, and that says that it's running on our local host here. So I will go back and reload that. Okay, so our website looks the same. Let me make this a little larger here. It looks the same, but if I open an image for our site, if we look at the URL for this image, then this says Django blog files dot, S3 US West Amazon AWS. So this is actually coming from our S3 bucket and not from our local file system. So that's good. That means that it is serving up those S3 files. Now let me also try to upload a new profile picture to see if that works. So I'm going to log in as the Corey S user that I created earlier in this series. And now let me go to my profile and upload a new image. So I'll go to choose file. These are going to be located on my desktop. So I'll just upload this avatar image here and update that. Okay, so we can see that it updated our image here. So if I open this image up in a new tab, then this should be coming from AWS. Now we can see that this didn't get resized, so that was expected. But if we look at the image URL here, this is coming from our Django blog files S3 bucket. So that is actually uploading those files as well. And if we wanted to be completely sure of that, then we could actually go back to our S3 bucket here and reload this. And if I click on profile pics here, then we can see that that avatar square was uploaded. So if I open that in here, then we can see that the last modified time is the current time. So that was just now uploaded. Okay, so that seems to be working well. Now, like I said, if anyone is interested, then I can show you how to create an AWS Lambda function that automatically resizes images in an S3 bucket, but I didn't want to get into that here since this video is a bit long already. But we can see that with those changes, that we can now have all of these files being served from AWS, which is definitely nice in terms of allowing our application to scale, and also will be more efficient as well. And also, if you're deploying to a service like Heroku, then you actually have to have these files being served from a service like S3 because they don't have a typical file system that allows user uploads. And we'll be seeing how to deploy this application to Heroku in the next video so that we can see what that looks like. Okay, so I think that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully now you have a good understanding of how we can use AWS to serve files for our website. But if anyone has any questions about what we covered in this video, then feel free to ask in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer those. And if you enjoy these tutorials and would like to support them, then there are several ways you can do that. The easiest way is to simply like the video and give it a thumbs up. And also it's a huge help to share these videos with anyone who you think would find them useful. And if you have the means, you can contribute through Patreon, and there's a link to that page in the description section below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos, and thank you all for watching.